Good.
Will, you ready?
Yeah, silencing my phone here real quick.
Okay.
You'll share me check.
Well-
Trey, go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It gives me privilege and honor to be standing here today to talk about one of the things that, government, county government especially, what we do is part of our many departments that we represent, we have emergency management. And a lot of times what we'd like to be discussing is how do we prepare to avoid? How do we make sure that we're doing everything we can possibly do to save lives and make sure that we're preparing for those situations that hopefully never come, right? I mean, that's essentially our goal. But when those times do come, we know that if we're prepared, it saves lives. And so today, we're getting prepared for the spring season, the flooding that oftentimes takes place with either weather events or like a day like today, right? Not too long ago, we were experiencing below zero. Who would have ever thought that it would be 50 degrees? Well, today it's close to 50 degrees and we have a decent amount of rain or snow melt that's taking place. And obviously that's going to create some issues with our sewers, basically our infrastructure and that load that's going to be coming through. And so that may cause some issues for people's backyards. It may cause problems with their sewers in their homes, or it may cause some problems in traversing through the neighborhoods or the roadways. And so today I'm with Daniel Kane, who is our Emergency Management Director, whose job really is to try to make sure that we're educating, making the public aware, and then when those incidents do take place, which hopefully don't take place, he will operate this building, this room that we're in right here. It's the Emergency Operations Center, where we are able to prepare and operate in those large-scale events. And so as part of this, I do each year an official proclamation, and this official proclamation is Flood Safety Awareness Week. And really it's an opportunity for us, one, to bring attention to the issue, to remind individuals within their own homes, their families, to discuss what are our prepared operations at home to make sure that we can be safe. And to talk more about that, Daniel Kane, our Emergency Management Director, will come up to talk about things that you can do to make sure that you're prepared. And with that, Daniel, please.
Thanks, sir. All right, good afternoon. Daniel Kane, Brown County Emergency Management Director. The purpose of today, as Executive Streckenbach mentioned, is to raise awareness to the threats and hazards that flooding can cause and bring to our area, and to hopefully have the public become more resilient to these threats and hazards. Several local events in 2024 from nearby counties in northeast Wisconsin do remind us that these flooding events do happen and they are in our backyard. So it's important that we don't become complacent to these types of threats and hazards. And flooding is the most common natural disaster that we face, both in Brown County and in Wisconsin. So again, very timely that we get this information out to folks. The 3 steps that I want to talk about today to be prepared for these threats and hazards that flooding can pose. The first is starting with the awareness of the threat. Flooding is very difficult to forecast, unlike other natural disasters and weather phenomena, due to the many factors that contribute to its nature. And so there's really more a holistic picture that's needed when we're talking about flood forecasting. Several things like snowpack, lake and river levels, rainfall total amounts, soil saturation, frost and ice thickness all contribute to flood increase and decrease threats. The current conditions out of the National Weather Service leave us at an average risk for flooding in spring of 2025 when you factor all these things into consideration. So I think it's appropriate, as we mentioned today, we were just thinking about snowfall rates and extreme cold, and now switching gears towards now melting snow and all those factors coming into play here today. Also, knowing if you're in a floodplain, you can get this information from our website to know if you're in a floodplain. I encourage you to look into that and see if that is the case. But understand that flooding can happen anywhere, not just in a floodplain. The floodplain is simply an area that is more likely to flood than others, but flooding can simply happen anywhere, as 20% of flood insurance claims were held outside the floodplain last year. We always want people to know the difference between a watch and a warning during any event, especially flooding. So the watch is be ready to take action. Warning simply means you need to take action now. There's actual flooding imminent or occurring when that's issued. We encourage folks to have multiple ways to receive alerts, both at home and at work, TV and weather, radio, phone apps. Find different ways to make sure that you are staying informed for when alerts do get issued for these things. And then understand the power of water. The message around flooding is turn around, don't drown. The majority of flood deaths do occur from people driving through flooded waters. 81% of the flood deaths in Wisconsin last year occurred due to people entering flooded areas that they were not previously in. So from a preventable standpoint, that's one area that we could really see being a mitigation effort, is just not entering those flooded roadways. 181 deaths in the United States last year were caused due to flooding. A portion of that was from the North Carolina tragedy and disaster, but there still was a 25% increase when you take that out. So still there was an increase in flooding deaths from 2023 to 2024 nationwide. Understand that 6 inches of water can sweep you away on your feet, and up to 12 inches of water can take away a moving vehicle. So water is very powerful, and we want to make sure we get, and it only takes a little bit to be impactful, so it's important to understand that on the front end. And also, when you go into floodwaters, understand if you're in a flooded area, pardon me, flood water itself is dangerous. It has contamination. Potentially electrical wires could be down. There could be needles or open sewage covers that you could fall through. So it's important not to walk or drive through those for those reasons as well. The other thing we're going to talk about is having a plan. We would really encourage everybody to consider having flood insurance. It's the most powerful tool you can have for your home to ensure that if you are impacted by flooding, that you're able to recover. Most homeowners insurance policies do not have flood coverage. It's a separate insurance policy that you have to obtain. And that usually has a 30-day waiting period. So the time would be now to act, or at least look into acting on that insurance policy, so that it'd be ready for you by the time we get later into spring. And then also document the valuable items in your home. You can do this just by taking pictures of everything in your home, things that are things of value. So if they get destroyed or lost during a flooding event, you're able to show insurance companies that you had that in your possession. Also important, we'll talk about this here, where to go if your home experiences a flood. So if you are asked to evacuate or you choose to evacuate to a flood situation, where are you going to go? Are you going to go to a hotel? Are you going to need an emergency shelter? Where are you going to go? Can you stay at a relative's or a friend's house? All those things should be considered. And then with you, you can take this emergency kit with you. We recommend that every home have one. Something we call a Go Kit. It has things like money, clothing, toiletries, phone charger, first aid kit, and a waterproof container with all your important documents stored inside, birth certificates, marriage certificates, social security cards, things like that you wouldn't want to get lost or damaged or destroyed during a flooding incident. These things can be taken with you rapidly on the go, wherever you go, so that you can try to recover as quickly as possible from that event. With that, I'll pause for any questions anybody has. That's the end of my report.
Dan, do you get any sense that these types of events are any more likely or feasible in the future? I mean, you touched briefly on North Carolina, which was an event that no one foresaw. We've seen more than 1,500-year rainfall. So any indication to you as emergency management, or are you approaching it any differently as these things may become more or less prevalent?
Yeah, I think, there's always statistics out there, right? There's the 1 in every 100 years, right? They talk about flooding, that type of a thing. I think we always need to be aware that it can happen any given year, right? Just even if it's 1 every 100 years or so on, or major disasters on the coasts, I think it's important that we take a look every year and we take it seriously, right? What we don't want to happen is have people brush aside because there might be a slightly less risk potentially for flooding that given year based on the criteria. But then all of a sudden, we might get a very heavy rainstorm that we didn't see coming, and then we have some flash flooding that impacts us, right? So I think the key message would be expect it to always be a potential to happen, and don't necessarily get wrapped up in the probabilities forecasting out. Just be prepared as you can be. Oh, thank you, sir.
In terms of the flooding Go Kit, how often should families or individuals keep stuff shelved, or how often should they, cycle stuff out with the kit?
Yeah, we recommend a really good time to do this is when you change your smoke batteries every year during the changing of the clocks. So it's just always a good metric we use twice a year. That puts you at twice a year. I think that's a good time to do it for to make sure that you're staying on top of it, not having to do another thing. Just while you're changing your clocks, change your smoke alarm batteries, CO2 alarm batteries, and check your emergency kits.
Yeah, I'm guessing statewide this is applicable across the state regardless of where you live, essentially kind of the basic points you're hitting on?
Yeah, this is applicable statewide. This is a common message, and again, Wisconsin, it's our #1 threat and hazard that we see. It causes the most damage in Wisconsin by far when you look at disasters statewide. So, yep.
I think we're good.
Good? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Did everyone get a zoom in on that when I had it up earlier? You guys needed it anymore?
I did.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Then I'll leave this with you guys. I gotta head to Madison, you guys, so have a good day. Thanks for the interest in the story, and thanks for telling
for having
me
us.
a positive story versus.
I don't know, the rat race that we did.
Right.